First, you may notice there's not as many pictures as the rest, a lot of the people. That's due to my lack of not being able to, due to my addiction, basically. Having to move around from multiple places, fires, and just making really bad decisions. So, my name is Matt. I'm a child of God, a person who struggles with anxiety, low self-esteem, depression, and alcohol, and tonight I choose recovery. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, I come before you to humbly ask you for your guidance to guide me through this testimony. I ask that you guide at least one person closer to their recovery and knowing you with the words I speak. Please let me be open and honest with these people before me, as you may be able to touch these people and show them the recovery is the path to life. Amen. All right, my recovery date is May 14, 2019. I started my struggle with drugs when I was in my teens. I started to struggle with low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression way before that. Some of the things that contributed to that were being the oldest child, which held more responsibilities, not having good friendship skills, plus it was hereditary. My sister has it, and my mom has it, and now I have it. So yes, I believe in the saying alcohol is a disease and it can be born with. I was a good kid in school. I had average grades, but with little to no friends. I struggled with making friends due to low self-esteem. I lived in an average home. Being the oldest of two had its pluses and minuses. I was picked first to be rewarded but at the same time, disciplined harsher. My parents divorced when I was about 12. I lived with my dad, and we bounced around a lot to different places to live. My dad is my rock and always has been. My mom is my mom. She has and does always what she was best for me, even if she doesn't like or love it. I started smoking pot about 15 or 16 with my friend Anthony. We would always find trouble, or it would find us. Weed was my friend until I found ecstasy. Man, I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. It had so much fun and found so much trouble doing it. It also obliterated my self-esteem. When I would do drugs, nothing or no one else mattered. Throughout my life, I've been used for either my money or my car, and I just thought that it was payment for having friends. I went into the Army when I was 21, and that was when I was introduced to drinking. Beer was the thing. You weren't cool if you didn't drink. I remember leaving final formation on Friday and going directly to the PX for a case or two of beer, not stopping until Sunday night. If not that, we would head off post to the closest bar or strip club and close it down. See, for me, beer was my pick-me-up. I could talk to the girls, crack jokes with the guys, and think I was Kenny Chesney at karaoke. It was never the case, though. I had found my self-esteem, anxiety, and my depression, so naturally drinking followed me after the Army. Throughout my adulthood, I would drink occasionally, but I did it when it was the point to forget what I was dealing with at the time. When I got married, the drinking decreased. My anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem increased. I drank in high school, drank in the Army, and just drank to fit in. My ex-wife helped me decrease that a lot. She was the best thing that happened to me until our daughter, Emma, came along in 2009. That's when my drinking increased again. Emma was born with osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a brittle bone disease that makes your bones brittle, kind of like osteoporosis in adults. She had breathing problems and eating problems. She had laryngeal malaise, bronchial malaise, and tracheal malaise, which means everything in the throat and esophagus and the lungs were all floppy. She needed a trach tube for at least 1 year of her life, and she was on a ventilator for almost the same amount of time. I remember when she almost died and I had to bring her back to life. It was a very complex environment, both at the hospital and once she made it home. That was really tough for me. Just a side note, seeing your daughter go limp in your arms just for a regular procedure kind of puts it to you, and blood flowing out of her throat. Yeah. I don't like blood, but it was one of those things that father instinct took in, and I just got right into it. She was the light of my life and my world. I sometimes blame myself for the problems she faced due to my life decisions and me not wanting to adopt. I found myself leaving the house a lot and drinking increased. But when I was home, I was the best and most attentive father and husband that there was. We were divorced at 6 years of marriage due to the lack of not being at home as much as I wanted I was wanted or needed. One of the worst feelings is to come home after work and seeing the house empty with wife and daughter gone. Drinking increased again, and I think that we can see a pattern here. I do not handle traumatic events, anxiety, depression, etc. well, and up until I got sober, I did not understand there is an alternative. My anxiety and depression were at its worst at this point. I struggled without help for a few years, drinking and bouncing around from jobs until it landed me at a job where I was introduced to meth. Once I started it, I was immediately hooked. I thought, wow, a way to lose weight, increase self-esteem, decrease my anxiety and depression, also without the side effects of drinking. I'm here to tell you that was the worst mistake of my life. Thinking I could fix everything with meth, I did meth for about 3 or 4 years. And I reached my lowest point when I started IV drug use. As you can see, I like tattoos, but I am deathly afraid of needles. I mean, deathly afraid of needles. I barely get blood work done. So that shows you how strong my addiction has over me. Yes, it took away my fears, but more importantly, it took away my ability to choose healthy decisions. The drugs had such a strong hold on me, I grew to a point that I didn't even care where I did them or who saw me. That strong of a hold on me. My IV drug use did and still had a strong hold on me. I think of triggers regularly, but when I remember where I've come from and where I'm going, it helps. It also has a strong hold on me health-wise. My blood flow isn't what it was. Blood pressure is high. Locations on my body where I used hurt. That's when I knew I was done. All during this time, I lived in a trap house, but I had a car, I had a motorcycle, not one of those. And the kicker was that I had a room somewhere else. I had my own place somewhere else that I was paying for. The addiction had such a strong hold on me, I did everything I could to stay as close to it and spending the least amount of my money for it. That's when I started selling drugs to help pay for my habit and to make friends. I also stole from stores, did tag swaps, made excuses at stores, everything to just save a few bucks. There were a few times I would be making a sale that a bunch of red flags appeared, but I did not care because I knew when I got back with the money, I would be getting drugs. I used people to get what I wanted and had some inappropriate relationships with people I would normally not have done had I been sober for at least not on meth. I did a lot of things I regret while on drugs. As a result, I lost my car, my motorcycle, my place to live, all because of the power the drugs had on me. I moved out of the trap house I was living in, but it was too late. From shooting up to selling to a cop, my life had caught up with me. On May 14th, I was arrested for selling to a confidential informant or a cop, and my life had changed, but for the good this time. But one last time, my drug brain got a hold of me, and right before I was arrested, I shut up one more time thinking that it would get me through all of it. That's not the case, not by a long shot. Well, I was in jail when I found CR, or maybe it found me. CR came into the jail for services and instantly felt a wave of relief. During that service, I wept at the thought of what I've done, who I had become, and what is in store for me if it is stick to this recovery program. When I was in jail, I started reading the AA book. Then one day, Kip came to the CPUs. The CPUs is called Core Processing Programs Unit. It's a series of circus-like tents out at the core facility on Ortez. If you're privileged to get chosen to be out there, they house the trustees, but they also house a program called Life Skills, where you learn how to become a better person, son, father, etc. Right next door to that is what we call the God Pod. It was a religious, faith-based program where you could become or strengthen your relationship with God. These two programs are how I was privileged, or better yet, shown grace from God to start my sobriety program. Now, for those of you that have not been in jail, people tend to look down upon you if you're doing something what they consider as being fake or trying to better yourself. So when the guards announced this meeting called AA, I looked around the dorm to see if there was anybody else going. A few guys went, so I tried. Man, was I happy I did. From the first time going, listening to Kip and other men in the circle talk, I thought that this recovery thing was right up my alley. I started going every week and learning about being sober. The 12 steps, the stories, getting a sponsor, and service work. See, again, I had to make sure, due to not being picked on, not to do too much, but it was hard so not to do. So it was hard to work on the 12 steps, but I had made a promise to myself and to God when I got out, I would ask Kip to be my sponsor. I soon went to prison and continued reading both the AA and NA book. Prison is like jail, but worse in regard to keeping an image, not being called out, and being think that you were weak, but I still did it. We had an AA group of 3 men that met each week. It's not like that was all that was allowed, but that shows you that it was all the men that were or can be interested in for whatever reason. I also attended church because it was not only because it was something that I wanted, but the big book tells us to talk and relate to a higher power. Prison life is a hard time to deal with. Through trying to stay sober and do what is needed to, you were pressured into drugs, fights, etc. But with God's help in the AA program, I was able to persevere. I got out of prison in September of 2022 and immediately went to CR. I asked Kip to be my sponsor, and I still remember him saying 2 things. 1, are you willing to go to any lengths to get it? And 2, will you call me every day? Well, to the first, I'm willing to, even to this day. And the second, I started out well, but I still see and talk to him regularly. See, a sponsor doesn't ask you to call him or her because they want to be nosy or you tell them every little detail about your day. It lets them have better understanding of how your sobriety is going. You know the saying, they have what I want? That's what instantly I found in my sponsor. The happiness, joyful, loving, happy to help attitude gave me hope that one day I could do that too. When I started working on the steps, it was slow going because I didn't know how, but once I got to believe, trust, and know my sponsor, things started making sense. The hardest steps for me were 4 and 5. Made a searching and fierce moral inventory, admitted to us and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. These 2 steps showed me how vulnerable I had to become in order to keep my sobriety. But when I got to step 9, making direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so it would injure them or others, was when I really was tested in not only my sobriety but also my faith. It was easy looking back when I had only had to admit to myself and my sponsor that I was a screw-up. Others is a different story. It's really hard to tell a loved one your skeletons. My fears and resentments were very strong. When I did my 4th and 5th, I met with my sponsor on the back of his porch and opened myself to judgment, but none was to be had. I also spent time talking and giving my fears to my higher power. I'm telling you, after going through it, it was one of the best experiences I had ever happened to me. Right up there with my daughter being born. He made me feel so open and willing to go into it that there were 2 things, that going into it were 2 things that I would never tell anyone. But when he said, is there anything else I would take to my grave, I just blurted them out. Yep. That's what the most important thing to have in a sponsor: openness and trust. Someone who understands the struggles. Someone who lets you know that they have been there and that there is nothing you can say that will surprise them. Someone who lets you know that you are exactly where you need to be at this moment. I am truly blessed to have the AA and CR program. Matthew 5:10 says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." My contact with God has strengthened significantly. I understand Him more. He is my light and my forgiver. My anxiety and depression has decreased a lot, also with meds. Not as worried about things. My relationships with my mom and dad have soared. I just give fears to God and His will be done. They are so happy with me and the man I've become. I continue to fellowship with friends, which I have many of now, go to meetings and do service work. Service work is a big part of my sobriety because I enjoy helping others. But like in standing in front of all you and sharing my story, I'm able to help someone understand that I know where you have been and where you can go if you trust Jesus. I am just a happy man now. When I went through some of my steps, my sponsor was able to help me let go of my hurts, habits, and hang-ups that were weighing me down. I believe Jesus is happy with who I've become as well, so far that it is because I still have a long way to go. I enjoy talking to Jesus every day and thanking Him for His sacrifice, His forgiveness, and His love. I tend not to let things upset me or frustrate me like they once did. I think for myself and treat my body as I know I deserve. I enjoy my life in spending time with my family. I'm not perfect, but one day at a time, as they say. Okay. I thought there was more. I'd like to end by saying thank you. Thank you to each of you for being here and for being supportive of me. It's hard for someone like me with my problems to get in front of all of you and be vulnerable, but with each of your help, I did it. Seeing all of you helps at least one person understand that there is hope and a new way of life when we choose recovery, and that you were able to relate to my story. Matthew 13:8 and 9 says, "Other seeds fell on the ground on good soil and produced grain, some on 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they were produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as I had planted." Just to know, I picked this verse because I believe it to mean that with hard work, you can change your product of your work from grain to crop with God's help and multiply tremendously. Change is possible with growth and work. Thank all of you for listening, and I love each and every one of you.